to enjoy this conversation. Today, we are looking at gender inequalities in the academia, the role of young researchers. I would love to state that our guest speaker is unavoidably absent this afternoon. She has to be elsewhere for reasons, for certain unforeseen events. So please bear with us as, excuse me, as today is going to be an open conversation between us. So I will set the ball rolling on gender equality, and then we'll have conversation of our experiences in our different universities, what challenges we faced as young researchers or young scholars, and what solutions do we think we can prefer to make the academia a safer and better space. So we are all going to be having this conversation while set ball rolling. So the first question that comes to mind is, what is gender inequality? How do we define what gender inequality is? How do we experience gender inequality in our different field, in our discipline, in our career, and in our community? Does gender equality mean women inequality? These are questions that come to mind in this kind of discussion. And I'm sure we are all aware that gender inequality speaks to receiving treatment based on that you find discriminating based on your gender. So, or you say you face discrimination, or you think that you have fewer opportunities, or you feel you are deprived of opportunities based on your gender, or you feel that you experience more violence or more discrimination based on your gender. That is when we say you are experiencing gender inequality. So the question that I would ask us is, do we think that gender inequality is about women? Because in the Center for Gender and Social Policy Studies, we've come to say that sometimes we at the response to issues that face some gender, we also marginalize the other gender. So the question now is, what is gender inequality same as women inequality, or women inequality against women? Because to understand the role we need to play as young researchers, I think it's important that we understand that inequality is not just meted against women. Inequality could also be meted against men, depending on your area of study, take for instance, if I remember growing up, we were used to seeing nurses who were female. It was quote and unquote an abomination to find that you have a male in the nursing career, because we were used to nurses in gowns and in skirt and blouse. So to find a nurse in trousers, it was kind of out of our stereotypes. It was not the usual picture that we were used to. And then I'm sure that such nurses, when at that time, such male nurses could have faced some kind of discrimination, either from their clients, from their colleagues who are female. For instance, there are 6 of you in the ward, in the hospital, and then you have just one male as a nurse. So it could put you at some level of discrimination, not because these people feel they should discriminate against you, but because in subtle ways, in unsaid ways, in ways that depicts, in ways that comes from body language, our body gesture against this other person. So you feel, wow. So as a woman, as a man, as a male nurse in a female-dominated environment, or in a female-dominated career, such person might have some level of gender inequality in his own space. So I'm trying to say this so that we understand that we are not just thinking of inequality meted at women alone, but also inequality as as it cuts across both male and female, and how this inequality could affect us in our career, especially in research and in the academia. So this is the kind of conversation I think we want to have this afternoon as we wait till next week to have our guest speaker speak to us on gender inequality in the academia, the role of young researchers. So what do you think? Can we let's get to the chat box and start to think or brainstorm or hear our view. And if you want to speak, please raise your hand so that we'll have this conversation around what do we think we can do as young researchers to make a difference. You know that when you grow up in a community where you're used to seeing things done in a particular way, if you don't sit down to critically interrogate what you've seen over the years, there's a possibility or a tendency that you follow that route of discrimination or behavior or attitude. So we've either as male or female, we've seen some sort of inequality in our academic career, in our environment, in our society, in our places of work. Now the question is, as young researchers, how do we think we can make a difference? Because we are interested in making a change. We are interested in changing the status quo. We are interested in changing how we all look at things. So how do we critically sit down and ask questions and change how we've been taught the dynamics of relationship between male and female, and how this has influenced our attitude to work, our representation at work, our courage, our responsibility, carrying out our responsibility at work. So we want to interrogate that. How do you think, or do you agree that indeed there is gender inequality? I've had to ask questions on gender inequality, and I've had different views. Some will say yes, there is inequality, and some will say I've never experienced inequality as a scholar, as a young scholar, as an early career scholar. So the question then is, are there inequalities in our spaces? Are there gender inequalities in the academia? Do you think that when you as a young female, as an early career with a female, do you think having a male mentor could put you at a disadvantage? Do you think that, oh, okay, do you male feel that nowadays, because women are encouraged to particularly encouraged to put in for opportunities and given an advantage over male, do you think it's some form of gender inequality? How do we see all of this event or situation around us? How can we make better our space? So please, let's go to the chat box and make this conversation interesting. I'm asking the question, do we think gender inequality, there's gender inequality? Do you agree that there's inequality in your space, in your university, in your department, inequality with your supervisor, inequality among your colleagues because you're a female or because you're a male, especially if you're either in a male-dominated career as a female or you're in a female-dominated career as a male? Do you think you've been violated, you've been discriminated against, you've been called weak as a man because you are in a career where that is female dominated? So please, let's make this conversation interesting. We thought we should do this rather than saying let's postpone till next week and not have a conversation. So please, let's raise our hand up. Let's go to the comment section and chat. Let's talk about what we think gender inequality is. Do we agree there's gender inequality in our spaces? If there is, what are the roles we can play as people who are coming up? How can we make an impact? How can we make a change? How can we make a difference? Should I start calling names? Please let me know I'm not speaking to myself. Do you think in your department there has always been male HODs? Okay, as a female career that as a female scholar that is coming up, how do you think can make a difference? Do you think you'd want to fight for more or create space for more female to join you? Do you think there's gender mainstreaming in your department? Do you think there's equality in employment, enrollment of your students? What are things that you see around us or around you that you would want us to share? I hope I'm not talking to myself because suddenly it feels like I'm alone in this world.
You are not alone, we are with you.
Thank you very much.
We are together.
You're not alone, ma. We are here with you.
All right, so let's have conversation. Let's have things in the chat box and let's discuss my opinion. Okay, so we have a comment from sorry, please. We have a comment from Adeni Victor. He's saying, thanks for the opportunity, Prof. My opinion is that there are increased opportunities in every tech-related field, including research, but more men seem to still take advantage of those available to them compared to female. I think we need to prep our ladies to appreciate what is made available. Thank you very much for that comment. Yes, I agree with you sincerely that nowadays, if as a female you think you're marginalized, especially when it comes to issues of opportunities out there, then we should ask you what Google search are you using? What's your source of information? Because there are lots of opportunities, like you said, and advantages available to women as compared to male. Unlike before, we used to have the same plain level ground where everybody applied. But nowadays, you have scholars and funders and grants agencies saying advantage will be given to female. And that is encouraging. And nowadays, too, advantage is given to early career scholars. They say if you're younger than 40, if you are less than 35, if you are less than 40, then you are at an advantage. So these advantages exist for us in the academia. Any other comments, any other take? What do you think? Do you think really there's gender inequality in the academia? I want us to speak. Please, if you can, just like if you think you want to talk, unmute and speak. If not, please go to the chat box and say something. This is our opportunity. Maybe we can write a paper with this and say that in this class, there will be 24 authors. We'll find somebody to read it, and then we'll say, well, it was like an interview, and then with the conversation while people were on the chat box, this was what we got, and then we do the qualitative processes like we talked about in the last 3 weeks, and then we'll look at it and then write a paper, and maybe Mr. Denny will lead the paper since he was the first person to speak. So please, let's have this conversation. Let's keep it rolling. Let's raise our hands to say what you think. Yes, Mr.
Thank you
Denny
so much.
Again, please feel free to speak.
Thank you so much, Prof. I do appreciate this actually this kind of gathering because it will encourage a lot of young researchers like me, and also to the question. I'm so sorry about the background noise. That was why I didn't want to talk initially. So the thing I notice is that in the academia, particularly in our local context, in the academia, I think more men seem to be more dogged. Men seem to be more dogged. It's not spelled out on white and black that opportunities are more available for men compared to women, but a lot of here and there, in quotes. I don't want to be quoted though, but that someone has to be able to rob some ogas back to be able to get some kind of opportunities, which is also very insulting on the dignity of the woman. So I think because of things like that, some women don't necessarily want to be in the academia generally. So it makes it look like there seem to be more opportunities in that space. The opportunities there, I don't think they are actually gender biased, but the people who are actually in charge of giving them, all right, make it look like it is gender biased. No man wants to sleep with me. I'm not gay, but technically, a fine lady that wants to take a job might be at the mercy of some kind of bosses who necessarily do not understand the dignity in that sense. So that might make it look like there are more chances for men compared to women.
Thank you very much, Mr. Denny, for that insight. He's saying that men are more dogged. Do you agree? Do you think, yes, we are equal? There's just challenges in our society or in this space that makes it difficult, particularly for women to thrive? Do you think that household responsibilities, family, work-life balance as women more and makes them at a disadvantage than male? What are your thoughts? Let's keep this conversation going. There is no right or wrong answer to note. So you are free to hear your view and will be willing to listen to you. So please, do we have somebody else that wants to say something? Hard to it, disagree with Mr. Denny for what he said, or give us an experience that you had in your space.
Okay,
Hello,
thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the opening and the overview. It's quite interesting to hear you speak. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We are with you.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I was just going to say that for me, I think culture has a place in this issue of gender inequality or bias, especially in the context of Nigeria. Most of the culture, whether the Hausa culture, the Yoruba culture, the Igbo culture, I think we believe that the home front is for the women, while the man has to go and look for what the family will eat, and that the women should just stay back at home, take care of children, cook, be in the kitchen, and all of that. But I think that is changing now, and I think it's changing so fast. But then we're not there yet. If you consider some of the high positions we have in our environment, starting from the topmost hierarchy in the country, you know, the president, for example. For a number of republics now that we have not had a single lady emerging as the president of Nigeria, not even as a vice president in Nigeria, not even as a Senate president or even as a House of Rep leader. We have not had that. You know, although we have a few of some of those ladies that have been opportune to be in the government, you know, but then some of them have apparently disappointed. I don't want to mention them here, but we have a number of them. We have their names with us. And then we also have a good number of them too that have so much impressed us, you know, about their performances in different positions they gave them. For example, Dora Akunyili, she transformed the healthcare, space, especially in the area of attacking fake drugs and things like that. So for me, I believe that women can, like, there's this general saying that used to say that what a man can do, a woman can do better. I believe so much when it has to do with that. That's women, they also have, it's like when you are talking about comparing people that are able with those that are physically challenged. It is their physical body that is physically challenged, not their mental ability. The same thing goes for women. We are all created equal, and I believe whatever a man can achieve, a woman can also do the same. So there shouldn't be any kind of disparity. There shouldn't be any kind of inequality when it has to do with positions. Like one of the examples you mentioned was in the profession, in the nursing profession, that most of the time it's more or less like a taboo seeing a male as a nurse and things. I quite agree. But then, fortunately for me, my dad was a nurse a long time ago. And then, but today now, I think that space is changing now. That notion is changing. So I'm happy that it's happening that way. And at the same time as well, I was going to mention the vice chancellors in university. That's also coming little by little. We have a few of them that are, I think in the last 5 years, that is a different ball game now, because we have a good number of ladies that are leading our institutions as vice chancellor. So it's quite impressive that this crusade of talking about inequality in gender activities is changing. Well, in support of I believe the background of this inequality thing regarding gender imbalance was as a notion of what are currently happening in terms of the disparity that we have had over time. And I think most of the time when we are talking about this, the first thing that will come to mind is we are talking in terms of women, in support of women, which is apparently correct. But at the same time, we should not say that we are going to take the definition at once we are talking about gender. The main thing we are talking about is about women. No, I agree. I quite agree. And I belong to that school of thought as well. But I think we can do much more, because even in our, there are some other professions as well, like mechanical engineering, for example, you rarely see ladies there. You rarely see women be represented there. And some other topmost positions, you rarely. But then I did my master's in UK, and I found that most of the UK institutions, ladies are leading. So, and then incidentally, you notice that they were the one that apparently colonized us. And I was expecting that it should have trickled down from them to us in what happened then here. But I don't think we picked that culture from them. I'm speaking for our country now here in Nigeria, but I think we can do more. We can do more in that space. We can do more in that space. And regarding what the last speaker said, talking about this kind of vulnerability for women, in terms of them getting to positions, getting to whatever. And that's why I'm so happy now that that's what we call this sexual harassment policy, gender policy in institutions. So I think there's a need for us to continue to be monitoring that and ensure that the appropriate steps are taken regarding whoever contravenes that. I think it's very important. So that way, once women are having confidence that with the minutes we're here, we can do this. That's why I'm so happy with some of the top leaders that are ladies in our university, especially here. I know a good number of them, and the way they've been, assisting the system to ensure that everything is going on well. A few of them that I can mention: Professor Morenikeji Opong, Professor Taiwo Intek. These are some of the fantastic women that we have around, including you and some few other ones. They're doing much, much more. I mean, they're doing very well. And I still believe that they can do much better to ensure that that space at the top is also available without any bias for our women. Thank you. Amaule.
Wow. Thank you very much, sir, for that contribution. I appreciate you, and thank you for noticing that we are doing well. Thank you for encouraging us. We appreciate you, sir. Any other person that wants to? I saw Dr. Adeyeye raise her hand the last time. Do you want to speak now, ma?
Yes, thank you very much, ma. And thanks for the introduction to the topic. And thanks also to the two previous contributors. Like when you were introducing us to the question, and as you have said, whether we like it or not, gender inequalities exist, in many sectors of the society, including in the academia. So we may, even as women, we may say, oh, it doesn't exist, or as men, we may say it doesn't exist, but gender equality is there in every ramification. And, gender inequalities, as we have said, it even starts, even right from conception, from the time that a child, or, the embryo is conceived, and, at the time of scan, at times when the mother goes to do the scan and realizes, oh, this is a male, this is a female, that is when, all this kind of inequality begins. And that is why even in some countries, we see people going to the extent of committing girls' child infanticide. They love to have male, they love to have boys. So it starts right from there. And even, after birth, in the process of socialization, we are made to know that, okay, boys are everything, the investment is more on boys rather than on girls, because the belief is that it's boys that will uphold the family, girls will go to another place. So that is where, the problem starts right from the beginning, right from the root. And it goes to, sectors like education, where in the academia, that even in the different aspects, let's say in recruitment, in promotion, in even, maintaining yourself in the academia, gender and social inclusion issues. So if a woman, like the first speaker, like the first contributor said that men are more targeted, and the director of Center for Gender probably said that it is even the society and the situation that is, contributing to women not, being assumed to be as maybe rugged or rugged like men. So it is not that women are not good enough, or that, they don't have that capacity like men, but a lot of issues in the society that have contributed to, the gap that we have between men and women in the academia. And Dr. Wole rightly said, the issue of culture, social and gender norms, they are very important. They are very important when we are talking of issue of gender inequalities, because, many of our interventions that we are doing, they are just to address the visible manifestation of gender inequality. Men are not in the management position in the universities and other higher institutions. Then we try to bring some women up. But how many women will be there with that kind of intervention? But the key thing is for us to start addressing those issues, from the roots, all those structural issues from the underlying causes. Why do people not believe in women's leadership? Why is it difficult for men? Maybe you are at farm with a male colleague, and later it's here, you see the woman is at some time, lagging behind. So we have to start to address those structural or underlying issues. Structural issues in terms of maybe in the institution, some maybe they have a framework or policies, that are put in place. How gender responsive are they? Then, talking of the issue of social and cultural norm, how do people even perceive women? Women academics, you see that they say, oh, this one cannot even be a dean, this one cannot be a director, or they cannot serve well as HODs. So what are even, the perception? What is the normative issue about the belief of being a man or being a woman, in all these issues that create gender gaps? So now we need to start addressing all these issues from the underlying causes, rather than just addressing the manifestation that those ones are not sustainable. They cannot go far. And again, when we are addressing these issues, we need to address them from different levels. We look at issues that affect women. Issues that affect women could be at the individual level, because it may be that women do not even have the capacity. And right from the beginning, that is, we can ask ourselves, how many men have PhDs? How many women have PhDs? And like Dr. Awole said, in some departments, how many women academics we have, how many men? We need to start looking at the individual, their relational issue. How do people, as I mentioned before, how do we perceive women abilities in our different, even ourselves, we should ask ourselves questions. There are men that will say, oh no, but even within themselves, they should check. Even women, I have seen a female student saying that she can never vote for a female as a president in their department, that no, the female should rather go for vice president or, the assistant. That is a woman saying that. So we need to start checking ourselves and addressing it from different angles, from the individual angle, from relational issue, and from structural issue. Do we have an enabling environment but for both men and women to thrive in higher education institutions? So I will just stop there so that at least other people can also contribute to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ade. Yeah, I appreciate you. I remember a scenario recently that was called to intervene. So this incident was brought to our table where a woman was asked to lead a unit in the university, and then one of the male colleagues insisted and assaulted her, confronted her, and said, "You cannot lead me. You can't be the leader wherever I am, because women are not supposed to be leaders." And then if I were not told, or if I didn't hear from the horse's mouth, I would assume that it was a lie or it was exaggerated. So as much as we think that things have changed, cultures have, we are learned, we're educated, we've changed our perspective to things of such, it was alarming and shocking for me to hear colleagues speak to each other derogatorily because as a woman, you cannot lead me because I'm a man. So this kind of thing still exists in our community, but I tell us that it's better. But it's shocking to discover or to note that there are still young people there are still people, scholars young or old, who still feel that women shouldn't lead. I was jokingly asking some of my friends, I said, yeah, we think that America is there, other Western countries are developed and better than we are, and they have given women that space. Then I asked, why is Kamari not the next president? Why did they not allow Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, to become the president when she wanted to be? So it's a discourse that is deep rooted in culture, but at the same time deep rooted in our upbringing. So I will allow somebody else to talk, but I just wanted to pass that out, that sometimes we think that it's far-fetched. Well, it can be shocking when you sit on some seats and people come to report some incidences to you, and you wonder, are we in the 18th century, or are we in 2025? So I'll allow others to react and speak about gender inequality in the academia. What is the role of young researchers? How do we make this space better for all of us to thrive and as we grow in the academia? Any contribution, please?
Yeah, I would like to. Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, Professor Kudayo, my director. And I also appreciate everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Dr. Paul Aoni from the Center for Gender. This is topical, and this is an issue that we are being confronted with. Fortunately, I'm a man who work in the space where people stigmatize as a space for women. You know, I remember when I was going to pick this job, several persons asked me and confronted me and were like, "Are you going to cope among women? That you are going into the space, into the world of women." And at that point, I got to understand that people really don't understand what gender is really about, and people don't understand what equality is really about. And there are instances when I had to engage with people from various faculties on this campus, and had to push discussion like having a woman as a vice president. You will hear people say, "Boya laye atuwa," like something that would never happen. So I think as much as we think that this inequality is not existing, as much as we want to think that this inequality is being it's getting reduced, the truth is that the cultural perspective and the patriarchal standards still makes it very, very difficult for us to achieve gender equality and for us to achieve for us to start to see more women in top positions of leadership. For example, the last speaker said something. Who says a woman cannot be a vice chancellor? Who says a woman cannot be a governor? Who says a woman cannot be the president? There is nothing different about having a woman president, a woman governor, and a woman speaker or a woman senate, house of a senator leading the president of the Senate. But I just think a lot of things need to change. There should be a lot of awareness, a lot of paradigm shifting. For example, in Nigeria, we have issues of gender inequality in the academia, and this manifests in several areas. We thank God for people like our Professor Kaide, who is trying to break the glass ceiling in the STEM careers. In the STEM careers, we will see that there's a lot of underrepresentation of women in the STEM careers and even in the STEM field. And this will continue to lead to women who are underrepresented in science, in engineering, in mathematics, even down to the secondary schools, for example. You hardly see a physics teacher who is a woman. You hardly see a chemistry teacher who is a woman, but you see a lot of them in the other subject. So there's issue of underrepresentation of women, which starts from even the grassroots, from the primary education to the secondary education, and this continues to reflect even in the university environment. We also see issues of workplace discrimination and even sexual harassment. This is also a major challenge and a persistent issue in most of our university because of this power dynamics, which makes it difficult for female students and even junior researchers or even junior faculty members to really try, making them very, very vulnerable. Also, we see issues of institutional mechanism that is not properly addressing the issues around harassment. Some of the policies are weak. Thank God for this kind of institution we have, which has a zero tolerance on harassment. For institutions where their policies are weak, it makes it very, very difficult for women to actually strive, which will lead to a culture of silence and impunity among junior faculty members and researchers. There is a lot of issues when it comes to gender bias in research and in curriculum. For example, there's curricula in many disciplines which fail to incorporate a lot of gender analysis. People don't even know what gender inequality is all about. Sometimes we think it's an issue of women contesting with men or men contesting with women. No, it's not an issue of contest. It's not a competition. It's an issue of just allowing someone who is fit to manage a space, to manage a group of people. It's not an issue of contest. I was in a situation in a religious gathering, and they were going to choose who is going to be the president of a fellowship on campus. I cited this example in one of my classes. There is a lady that was fit to be the president of this fellowship, but because she was a lady, the leadership felt, no, we cannot use a woman or a lady to be the president of the fellowship. And so they had to just find a way to look for a guy, a boy, a brother who is not so much too committed, but because he's a man, he has to be the man that will lead. And so there are issues of gender bias in our system that is affecting the representation of women in leadership. Another major challenge is the work-family balance and the maternity discrimination. A lot of women in academia face a lot of significant challenges balancing the professional responsibility with the responsibility from the home front, because a lot of the men leave responsibilities of caring to the woman. And so she'd be the one to care for the children. She'd be the one to care for the husband. She's the one to provide the food. And if care is not taken, she's also in academics. She also needs to write papers. She also needs to get promoted. All of these will affect productivity. All of these will affect our desire to get to the peak like the male counterpart. So policies on maternity leave and support structures for academic mothers, I think, are very, very essential because these are inadequate and will continue to cause a lot of career interruption. Like I said, there are cultural and institutional barriers. Culture is a major issue. The patriarchal norms, the patriarchal dominance is a major issue because this is deeply ingrained in us. Women should not lead. And this will continue, even women themselves, because of what we have heard, because of what they have heard, will not naturally want to push themselves to the front. And I think this kind of discourse should challenge women, regardless of the culture, we find ourselves. Let's push ourselves to the front. There are people of example, for example, the director of the Center for Gender is a worthy example. We have Professor Moreni Keji. She's a worthy example. We have the Davis Academics. There are a lot of worthy examples around us. And this should be an encouragement to women in academia. Let us, in spite of the cultural laid-backs and barriers, let us push ourselves to the front, because the truth is that culture will continue to lay us back. But by the time we push ourselves to the front, we'll become role models and mentors to people coming behind us. And the last thing I just want to make mention is we lack a gender responsive policies and implementation. We lack a gender responsive policies and implementation, which is not allowing the women to forge in their career. I had on this campus some time ago, in a particular department, they were going to conduct an interview for new academia who are joining a particular department. A question was asked from a lady who, from one of the lecturers on the panel, asking her if she was pregnant and how she's going to cope with pregnancy as an academia. I felt that's that's not too good a question to be asked from any academia. If she's pregnant, that has something to do with her productivity. And I think we have lack of gender responsive policy and implementation, which I think if all of these things are put in place, will give an enabling environment both for the men and the women especially to become leaders in their chosen career and endeavor. Thank you, Prof. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ade and Awuni, for that beautiful contribution. So I'll ask this last question, then we'll leave. The question that comes to mind as we are all speaking is, how do we then break down these cultural biases that we think fuels gender inequality? We all agree that whether it's a man or a woman, there can be some form of inequality meted that each of us, it could be the man being at the receiving end, it could also be the woman at the receiving end. So when we have these biases, when we have these inequalities in our space, especially as researchers, what is our role? How do we break down the biases? Because we keep talking about cultural bias, patriarchal society, patriarchal system, and I ask in my mind, who opposes this culture? Because there is no culture without human being the we are the ones that fuel it. We are the ones that make culture. Without humans, there's no way of life. There's no way to greet. There's no way to sit. There's no social norm. So for us, if each of us will challenge the status quo and challenge the cultural norms that we have all held strongly onto, and we try to challenge you to break them down, and then we would have a better society. We will have a better space. So how do we break them down? Do we just encourage our children who are girls to be in the male-dominated um, professions? Okay, I have a daughter, I must insist she should be a mechanical engineer. Would that make a difference? Or okay, I have a boy who wants to be hairstylist. Would that make the difference? Or I have a boy who wants to be a chef or a cook or a cleaner, have a cleaning agency. Would that make a difference? Okay, if I have a husband as a woman that is willing to help me do my house, do share the responsibility in the household with me, would that make a difference? How do we break down this supposedly inequality that we all, or this cultural bias that we feel is so cast in stone, it cannot be changed? And we are all looking at it like, okay, it's a monster somewhere, but we are all part of the system. So how do we break this societal, or this menace? How do we break it down to have a better society? I think that's what we should start thinking about and talking about. What is our role as young scholars? Yes, we all have these ideas in our heads. We all know the right thing. Okay, we feel, oh, I'm learned, I know, but we are still the ones who have um psychological breakdown in our homes, in our marriages. We still fight our husbands, beat our wives, we slap our husbands, we do all of these. Okay, as a lady, you want your boss to still have some sexual relationship with you so that you can be promoted, or you want him not necessarily for promotion but for just to harass him. Or as a man, you feel, oh, this girl, if I must be a mentor or a supervisor, I must have sex with her. So these things are not in the heavens. They are with us in our society. We are the ones perpetrating them. Of course, I'm not pointing fingers, but I'm saying we. I'm not saying you have. I'm saying we are all part of this system that continues to uphold these cultural biases that we think is so cast in stone. We are the ones that will make the difference. If we don't do that, nobody will. So I keep using this term, we are stronger and better together, because we can have a better society, a safer society, when we all know the right things to do and we do them. It's not just in knowing. I'm sure we all know. We all know that there is inequality, either meted as men or as women. We all know. We are all in the society. We are challenged this afternoon to start to make a difference, to start to change the narrative, to start to challenge the status quo, so that eventually, if not in our own days, but in the days of our children, there will be a safer society, there will be gender equality, and the world will be better. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. It's 4:01, and we appreciate the contributions we've all made. We appreciate your time that you decided to even stay with us, regardless of the fact that our guest speaker is unavoidably absent. Thank you for coming. Please join us next week. I'm sure we would have a better conversation next week. Thank you once again. Have a good afternoon or evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Prof.